Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into the future of the global auto market, which is, one of the world's most important industries. And according to a major new forecast, the road ahead looks, well, pretty bumpy. So what is really going on?
So, all the insights we're about to get into come directly from the Global Auto Market Update 2026 report. This was put together by the financial experts over at Moody's, and we're going to use their data to really understand what's driving the changes that are coming our way.
Okay, here it is, the single most important number from this entire report. The projected growth for global sales of cars, SUVs, and light trucks in 2026 is less than 2%. Now, to put that into perspective, after years of some really strong expansion, the industry is essentially hitting a wall.
Which, of course, raises the big question, what forces are all coming together to slow down this massive industry? And it's not just one thing. It's really a perfect storm of economic and policy pressures. So to really get it, we're going to look at the slowing market pace. We'll untangle this whole tariff puzzle. We'll examine the crossroads for electric vehicles and then see how this all lands on you, the consumer, before we wrap it all up with 3 core findings.
All right, first up, let's look at the global numbers. The big picture reveals an industry that's definitely shifting into a much, much slower gear.
This regional breakdown tells such a fascinating story. So while China is still growing at a decent 2.4%, look at the US and Western Europe. Those sluggish numbers are what's pulling the entire global average down to that headline figure of just 1.7%.
Okay, next, let's try to unpack one of the biggest factors creating all this uncertainty: tariffs. These things are creating ripples across the entire supply chain.
It's the question that economists and regular people have been asking for years, right? Is it the foreign company, the domestic one, or is it the person actually buying the car? Well, the data gives us a pretty clear answer.
The core of the problem is just instability. The report highlights these wild swings in U.S. tariff policy. They actually call it a rate roller coaster. And for automakers that need to plan years in advance, this kind of constant policy change just creates massive uncertainty and financial risk. And the report gives us a really clear answer to our question. Just look at this breakdown. A staggering 53% of all tariff costs are passed directly onto consumers, that's us, in the form of higher prices. U.S. companies eat another 29%, while the foreign exporters, they only bear about 18% of the cost.
So this isn't some abstract economic theory, right? This directly impacts how affordable a new car is for everyday people. That sticker price you see at the dealership is being directly pushed up by this policy roller coaster.
All right, next, let's switch gears to the transition to electric vehicles. It's another area that's full of hype, but the data shows it's hitting some pretty major speed bumps, and the global picture is surprisingly uneven.
In the United States, for example, the data suggests a really strong link between government incentives and sales. As those valuable tax credits start to phase out, the forecast shows the rate of EV adoption is going to cool off significantly.
But it's a completely different story in China. Over there, electrification isn't just a trend. It's a powerful engine that is fueling a massive surge for their local domestic brands, and they are now becoming some fierce competitors on the world stage.
So you've got these 2 very different paths emerging. In the US, the growth is tied to incentives, and those are fading. In China, it's a domestic-led boom. This creates a really complex and highly competitive global EV landscape for the years ahead.
At the end of the day, all of this comes down to the customer. Automakers can build all the cars they want, but if people aren't willing or able to buy them, the market just stalls. So what's the state of the consumer? Well, the data suggests the consumer is not in a great place. Confidence is hovering near historic lows. And when people are worried about the economy, inflation, their jobs, they postpone big purchases. And a new car is one of the biggest purchases there is.
And this leads right to affordability, which the report shows has completely stagnated. The number of weeks of income you need to buy a new car, it isn't improving. Put simply, cars just are not getting any cheaper relative to what people are earning. Okay, so after looking at all these pressures, from global trade to EV adoption to what's in the consumer's wallet, what are the most important takeaways from this entire forecast?
Well, the report boils it down to 3 critical points. First, this slowdown isn't some temporary dip. It's the new reality. Second, policy has become a major wildcard. For an industry that plans new models years in advance, that kind of instability is poison. And third, The consumer, the engine of it all, is being squeezed from all sides, and that's putting a hard ceiling on demand.
And, a direct quote from the report really ties it all together, highlighting how these interconnected pressures, especially affordability in the U.S., are what's ultimately capping that global growth figure.
And this leaves us with a final, crucial question for the future of an industry that affects all of us. With slow growth, policy uncertainty, and a strained consumer, automakers are navigating one of the most challenging roads they have ever faced. The next few years are going to be all about survival and adaptation.